On this episode of the Hockey Nuts podcast, the World Cup starts to wind down as the NHL preseason gets going. We'll have all the surprising details of the World Cup semifinals, as well as Game 1 of the final. We also discuss the NHL headlines and preseason highlights from the past week. Then, we finish our weekly team preview segments and give you team-by-team previews of all 7 teams in the Central Division. All this, plus the KHL Minute and our picks of the week, coming up next. This is the Hockey Nuts Podcast, Season 1, Episode 8, recorded on Wednesday, September 28th, 2016. NHL Preseason Begins.
Shut up and sit down.
This will go down the ice, no icing on the play.
Only 4 Russians on the ice right now, and nobody's noticed.
The steal by Sidney Crosby, he shoots, he scores! Russians a man short and didn't have a penalty yet. Sidney Crosby makes them pay 1-0 Canada. Crosby again, centering pass, tip. Bergeron can't get a shot. Crosby to Marchand, he scores! Minute and 12 seconds after the go-ahead goal for the Russians, Sidney Crosby engineers the tying marker. Steered aside by Halak. And the other way goes Thomas Tatar. Forsberg's trying to catch him and does. Hedman's there as well. Kopitar kept the puck in. Zuccarello on front. Tatar scores! Thomas Tatar in overtime. Team Europe is going to the World Cup final. Awaiting the arrival of his line mate. He's out there with Patrice Bergeron. Right up the middle. This is Bergeron trying to get away from a forward. Niederreiter passes off. Marchand scores!
Out of the box comes Brad Marchand, and 2 teammates have done this before a million times in practice and so often in games. And for Halak, a difficult first shot.
Carefully, Paul positions himself straight away. Chelios finding Paul. Keep it on the perimeter. Justin fires, and he top shelves the winner for the Canes.
Right past the blocker and Daniel Winnick, and beats the goaltender right over the right shoulder.
Reed take the puck away from Vitaly Abramov, setting up DeBrusk in front, and Hayes taps it home. But it started with a good read in the defensive zone. The Bruins capitalize on the turnover, transition, and they tie it.
With the stick ready for the shot. Fury gets it back. Fury again. Out to Clendening. Moves it to Zibanejad and scores! What a shot by Mika Zibanejad. It's a power play goal. And the Rangers have tied it at 1.
Those are just some of the highlights that have happened over the past week. So let's get the puck dropped on this episode. All right, hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. We've got a lot going on this week. We've got NHL hockey, we've got World Cup hockey, we've got all kinds of stuff going on. So let's go ahead and get started. My name's Wayne. I'm here with Steve. How you doing, Steve?
Good. How you doing tonight, Wayne? Good to be with you.
Good. Been pretty excited. I don't know how much hockey you've been watching over the last week, but there certainly hasn't been any shortage.
It's coming on full tilt now.
Yeah. And for a change now, they're actually televising some preseason games on TV, which hasn't been done in a lot of years past.
Yeah, I was glad to see that. The Bruins game the other night I watched for a couple periods, and you're right. It seems like every night they've got a game or two on the network.
Yeah, and the NHL Network, if there's no games on live, they've got them on replay.
That's right.
So that's pretty cool. But before we get into NHL preseason, let's go ahead and get started with World Cup action. And since we last recorded, we've had our semifinal games have already been completed, and we've already completed Game 1 of the final. So let's go ahead and talk about those real quick. On Saturday, the 24th, we had the first semifinal game, and that was Canada versus Russia. And Canada came out on top of that one. It was actually a pretty good game to watch, but Canada, to me, seemed to be in control right from the start. Crosby had a goal and 2 assists. Brad Marchand had 2 goals. John Tavares and Corey Perry each had a goal. Carey Price made 29 saves. And for the Russians, Artemi Panarin, Kucherov, and Kuznetsov each had a goal. One thing that was curious to me, Ovechkin had no points and was a -1 with only 1 shot on goal. And Malkin only had 1 assist. So looks like, to me anyway, Canada just focused on shutting down Ovechkin and dared the rest of the team to try to beat him, which didn't happen.
Yeah, I was really surprised, Wayne, in that Vladimir Tarasenko didn't have more of a going to by the team itself. I felt like Russia was going to Ovechkin, and here they got Malkin and Tarasenko, and I mean, you can go down the line. There's so many weapons, but I really thought they would have went to Tarasenko more than they did and put a scare into whoever they were playing. You know, they could have. He just didn't seem to be a factor.
Yeah, and you really didn't see his name mentioned much at all during the tournament.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason behind that was. He's a great player and a tremendous skater and stick handler, and it seemed to me like that was what they needed. I just didn't see it. I failed to I didn't understand Russia's rationale. I mean, they came on and they did great winning against Team North America. That was the highlight of their World Cup, really.
Yep.
And I really thought they were going to take it to Canada more, but it seemed like once they got to the third period, man, Canada just poured it on, and Bobrovsky just couldn't keep up. They just really
a lot of
shots.
We can definitely say Canada won that one going away for sure.
Yep.
Now, the next semifinal game was on Sunday, the 25th. That was between Europe and Sweden. That game actually went to overtime, and Europe stunned the world by beating Sweden 3-2 in overtime. Yeah. Thomas Tatar scored the overtime goal, 3:33 into overtime. Halak got 39 saves. Tatar actually had 2 goals. That overtime goal was his second goal. Gabrick had a goal. Kopitar had 2 assists and was a +2. And for Europe, your Mats Zuccarello had an assist as well.
Yeah.
For Sweden, we had Backstrom and Carlson each had a goal. And Henrik Lundqvist was the starter in net, made 23 saves. Now, I have a couple questions that I have came out of that. First of all, did Sweden play a little bit too defensively, too conservatively in that game? Seemed to me they did to me, but
yeah, I really agree with you. I mean, Carlson scored that goal from the blue. I mean, he scored literally from the blue line. I mean, that was a long shot he took that bounced around and deflected and went in off of Halak.
Yep.
And I really didn't understand why they weren't going to people. They got Patrick Hornquist and big guys they could put right in the middle in front of the net.
Yep.
And they just didn't seem to do that, run plays or cycle at all.
Yep.
And that goal that went in at the end there on Henrik, I mean, he blocked the first shot that was deflected off of Tatar's skate. And then the second, then he tapped it in with his stick. Had Henrik been able to stretch his leg against the post, that he wouldn't have scored.
Yeah.
So
actually, I think he actually kicked it in. He was trying to kick it up to his stick, but it went past the stick and into the net. That's why they went to a video review on that one. And they determined that it wasn't really a kicking motion, but it was damn close. That's for sure. It could have gone. That call could have gone either way, but ultimately they decided to keep the original call, which was a goal, because it wasn't obvious enough to overturn the call, I guess.
Yeah.
Is what they went to on that one. So yeah, Sweden got knocked out in the semifinal. And if you listen to the call in the game, the announcers, of course, the announcers that I saw anyway were Canadian announcers, and they almost seemed disappointed that European team beat Sweden.
Yeah, I think they really wanted to play Sweden.
Yeah.
And that might have been it would have definitely turned out to be more intriguing for me, I guess, than the Canada-Europe thing. I don't know if Europe's going to win, even though they're playing well to get there. But then stranger things have happened, haven't they?
Well, Europe got there, so
yeah. Yaroslav Halak, he's the player of their team. He's played tremendous.
And in a short tournament like that, that's all you need is a hot goalie, really. And we said that even before the tournament even got started. There could be a team that could survive or surprise everybody by having just a goalie that stood on his head for 5 games and bam, they're in the final. So that sets up the final between Canada and Europe. And we've actually had game 1 already. It was played, let's see, we're recording on Wednesday. It was played last night, right? Yeah.
That's right.
And that game, pretty much Canada owned that game right from the start. The score is 3-1, so the game on the scoreboard was fairly close. But to me, Canada pretty much carried the play all night. Just a few of the stats from the game. Bergeron, Marchand, and Crosby each had 2 points. Bergeron, Marchand, a goal and assist apiece. Crosby with 2 assists. Stamkos had a goal. Carey Price had 32 saves. Thomas Tatar had a goal for the Europeans. And Halak, again, made 35 saves. So Europe was outshot by Canada, but not by a huge margin. It was 38-33. But Europe doesn't seem to have an answer for that Bergeron, Marchand, Crosby line.
I agree with you. I don't know if anybody did. That's the top line in the world.
Well, Crosby's leading the tournament in scoring, and Marchand is right behind him. So you're right.
Up until this game too, Stamkos hadn't scored a point, so he finally got on the scoring board there. But Canada's just loaded. They really are, and Europe is. I really don't think they're going to win this next game. I really don't. Kudos to them for getting this far.
Yeah, it is a 3-game series, so the winning team does have to beat the other team twice. So game 2 is actually Thursday night at 8 p.m. That's on ESPN2 here in the U.S. And game 3, if they need to play it, will be Saturday at 7 p.m. again on ESPN2, if they even need to play it. But personally, the way this game went, I'd be surprised if it even went to a game 3.
Same here. I think it's over tomorrow night, and that's it.
So Canada will be happy if that happens. The Canadians are still bitter over the Americans beating them in '96. So, and I think they wanted to play either Russia or USA in the final, and they would have taken Sweden as a third option. But they're going to end up with Europe, and they'll enjoy their World Cup win if they win it just the same.
Yeah, they will. They will. They'll be partying with that trophy.
Is it the same? I haven't even seen the trophy.
I saw this long, giant gold, but I saw that was the 1996. I guess it's the same thing, I really don't know. It was like a 3-foot high trophy, but very skinny,
Yeah.
Like a plaque on the bottom that you could. I guess they etched the names or whatever. I don't know, but it's a different looking trophy. If that was it.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing the trophy now, or at least I'm seeing the logo, which has kind of a picture of the trophy. It's not the same one that they played for in 2006, but it's very similar to the one they played for. What was it? 2010. 2006 was the first one. I don't even remember when the second World Cup was.
You mean 1996?
I'm sorry, 96. And then
the second one was 2004.
You're right, 96 and then 2004. So yeah, the one that they had in 2004 looks very similar.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yep. All right, so that's pretty much it in terms of World Cup. That tournament is at this point winding down.
That's right.
So, and all the other teams that have been knocked out, most of their players have made their way to their NHL teams or are making their way to their NHL teams within the next few days. So that brings us to NHL preseason.
Very, very quickly, too. Isn't that amazing?
Yep. Yeah, some teams have already played a few games. Games actually started on Sunday night. It was just just 2 games on Sunday night. That was Columbus Blue Jackets. Yeah, Columbus Blue Jackets played the St. Louis Blues, and actually there was 2 games, but they were between those 2 teams. So They were split squads. One game was in St. Louis, the other game was in Columbus. And St. Louis won both games in that one. But the rest of the teams essentially got started, or almost everybody got started, on Monday night. I know the Bruins played Monday night, and the Rangers didn't play until Tuesday night. But the Hurricanes, the local team around here, played Monday night as well.
Yes, they did.
So we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about, we're not going to go ahead and talk about all these games. I'll end up recording a segment that will be inserted into the beginning of the show that will just run down the scores real quick that have happened thus far. Okay, before we get going talking about the games involving our favorite teams, let's go ahead and get you caught up on all the scores that have happened so far in the NHL preseason. The first game started on Sunday, the 25th of September, and there was 2 games that day, both involving the Blue Jackets and the Blues. They had a split squad game with a game taking place in each city. The game in St. Louis between the Blues and the Blue Jackets went for the Blues, with the Blues winning the game 7-3. Scott Hartnell scored 2 goals and 1 assist. Sam Gagner had a goal and 2 assists, leading the Blue Jackets. St. Louis was led by Kenny Agostino, who had 2 goals and 3 assists for a total of 5 points. Samuel Blaze had a goal and 3 assists. Scott Hartnell and Sam Gagner each had 3 points. Robbie Fadry and Kevin Shattenkirk had 3 points each as well. In the other game that took place Sunday, the Blues also won that one by a score of 5-0. The St. Louis Blues got a shutout with both goalies splitting time. Phoenix Copley made 11 saves and Jordan Binnington made 10 saves. St. Louis got balanced scoring in this game, with 8 different players getting at least 1 point apiece. On Monday, September 26th, we had 12 games around the league. The Senators visited the Toronto Maple Leafs and beat them 6-3. Statistics for that game had not been provided at the time of this recording. The Blue Jackets visited Boston and beat them 3-2 in a shootout. Sam Gagner made a brilliant move on Zane McIntyre in the shootout period. Both teams in this game had very balanced scoring, as Columbus had 6 players with a point apiece, and Boston had 6 players as well with a point apiece. The Wild went to Buffalo and beat them 2-1. And again, statistics for this game were not provided by the NHL. The Devils were visited by the Flyers and beat them 2-0. Keith Kincaid and Anders Lindback split duties in the nets for New Jersey on the shutout. Nick Lappin scored both goals for the New Jersey Devils. The Devils-Flyers game was a split squad game for the Flyers. The other half of the Flyers team traveled to New York to play the Islanders, and that team lost as well in a shutout 3-0. Christopher Gibson and Jean-Francois Berube combined on the shutout for the Islanders. Joshua Ho-Sang led the Islanders in scoring with a goal and an assist. The Hurricanes and Capitals each opened their preseason game in Washington, and Carolina came out on top 2-1 in overtime. Justin Fox scored the overtime goal for the Hurricanes. 6 players for the Hurricanes had a point apiece, and 3 different Washington Capitals had 1 point apiece. Eddie Lack and Alex Nedeljkovic combined for the win for the Carolina Hurricanes. While one half of the Devils team played the Flyers in New Jersey, the other half of the Devils team traveled to Montreal to play the Canadiens. And in that game, the Devils came out on top as well, 3-2. Adam Henrique had 2 goals for the Devils, while Michael McLeod scored the other goal. Zach Redmond and Marcus Eisenschmidt scored the goals for Montreal. Scott Wedgwood and Mackenzie Blackwood split the goaltending duties in the win for New Jersey, while Mike Condon and Charlie Lindgren manned the nets for Montreal. Now we move out west. The first game out west was between the Stars and the Blues, and in this game, the Stars came out on top 3-1. Patrick Nemeth, Yuri Hudler, and Patrick Eaves all scored goals for Dallas, while Kevin Shattenkirk scored the lone goal for St. Louis. Edmonton-Calgary played a pair of split squad games, with each team hosting half of the team. The first game, in Calgary, the Oilers came out on top 2-1. Anton Slepyshev and Yuri Salonen got the goals for Edmonton, while Mark Giordano got the lone goal for Calgary. In the other game, in Edmonton, the Oilers came out on top again 4-2. This was the opening night of Edmonton Oiler hockey at New Rogers Place Arena. Freddie Hamilton and Kenny Morrison got the goals for Calgary, while Chris Versteeg, Tyler Pitlick, Eero Pikarinen, and Ryan Vesey got the goals for Edmonton. And the final games on Monday night, the Kings and the Coyotes played a pair of split squad games, one in each city. In the first game, the Coyotes hosted the Kings, and won 5-3. Max Domi, Ryan White, Stefan Fournier, Michael Bunting, and Luke Shen had the goals for Phoenix, while Teddy Purcell, Kyle Clifford, and Trevor Lewis had the goals for the Kings. In the other game on Monday against the Kings and the Coyotes, the Kings hosted the Coyotes and won 4-3. Brett Sutter, Lucas Lesio, Tanner Pearson, and Tyler Toffoli had the goals for the Kings, while Dylan Strome, Henrik Samuelsson, and Connor Murphy scored for Arizona. Now we move to Tuesday, September 27th. The Predators and Panthers played a pair of split squad games, with both games taking place in Florida. In the first game, the Panthers beat the Predators 4-1. Greg McKegg, Jonathan Ainge, Jonathan Marchessault had the goals for Florida, while James Neal scored for the Predators. In the other game, the Predators prevailed 2-1 over the Panthers. Mika Solomaki and Pontus Aberg scored for Nashville, while Paul Thompson netted the only goal for Florida. The Sabres hosted the Senators Tuesday night, and the Sabres came out on top 3-2. Derek Brassard got his first goal in a Senators uniform, and Chris Neal scored the other Ottawa goal, while Nicholas Baptiste, Derek Grant, and Jake McCabe scored for Buffalo. The Rangers hosted half of the Islanders squad, with the Rangers coming out on top 5-2. Mika Zibanejad got his first goal in a Ranger uniform, and Chris Kreider, Brandon Peary, Dylan McElrath, and Dan Girardi each scored the other Rangers goals, while Nick Leddy and Jason Chimera scored goals for the Islanders. The other half of the Islanders traveled to Philadelphia to play the Flyers, and the Flyers came out on top on that one as well, 4-0. In that game, Wayne Simmons had 2 goals, and Andy Melee and Dale Weiss scored the other 2 goals for Philadelphia. Steve Mason played the entire game for the Flyers and scored the shutout for his efforts. The Red Wings hosted the Penguins on Tuesday night, and the Red Wings came out on top 4-2. Mitch Callahan scored 2 goals for the Red Wings, and Evgeny Svechnikov and Riley Sheehan got the other goals for Detroit. Garrett Wilson scored both goals for Pittsburgh. Montreal hosted their first preseason game as the Capitals came to town, and Montreal came out on top 5-2. Torrey Mitchell got 2 goals for Montreal, while Alex Radulov got his first goal in a Montreal uniform, and Nathan Beaulieu and Paul Byron each chipped in a goal apiece. Zachary Sanford and Marcus Johansson got the goals for Washington. The Lightning hosted the Hurricanes, with the Hurricanes coming out on top 3-2. Brody Sutter, Lucas Walmart, and Jeff Skinner all had goals for the Hurricanes, while Braden Point and Bakanji Imama scored goals for Tampa Bay. The Wild hosted the Avalanche, with the Avalanche coming out on top 4-1. Mike Sislo, Rene Bourque, Mikhail Grigorenko, and Ben Smith all had goals for Colorado, while Victor Bartley had the lone goal for Minnesota. On Tuesday the 27th, the Flames traveled to Winnipeg to face the Jets, and the Flames came out on top 3-0. Brett Kulak scored 2 goals for Calgary, and Freddie Hamilton added the 3rd goal. Chad Johnson and David Rittich split duties in the net for Calgary in the shutout. The Ducks hosted the Coyotes on Tuesday night, with the Coyotes coming out on top 2-1. Chris Mueller and Henrik Samuelsson scored goals for Arizona, while Antoine Lagunier scored the lone goal for the Ducks. And in the final game on Tuesday night, the Sharks hosted the Canucks and beat them 3-2 in overtime. Kevin LeBlanc, Tommy Wingles, and Barclay Goodrow scored the goals for San Jose, while Bo Harvett and Sven Baertschi scored the goals for Vancouver. On Wednesday, September 28th, there were 6 games on the schedule. In the first game, the Bruins hosted the Red Wings, with the Red Wings coming out on top by the score of 5-1. Steve Ott and Luke Glendening each had 3 points apiece, including a goal for each, while Anthony Mantha, Kyle Criscuolo, and Drew Miller had the other Detroit goals. Austin Zarnik had the lone goal for Boston. Malcolm Subban and Dan Vladar split duties in the nets for Boston, while Jared Coro and Jake Patterson split duties in the nets for Detroit, while Jared Coro played the entire game for Detroit. In the next game, the Devils and Flyers got together in Philadelphia, with Philadelphia coming out on top 2-0. At the time of this recording, stats had not been released. Heading out west, the Penguins traveled to Chicago to play the Blackhawks, with the Penguins coming out on top 2-0. Chris Kunitz scored both goals for the Penguins, while Tristan Jarry played the entire game and earned the shutout for Pittsburgh. The Stars traveled to Denver to play the Avalanche on Wednesday, with the Avalanche coming out on top 4-2. Joe Whitney, Francois Beauchemin, Ben Smith, and Patrick Weircock had the goals for Colorado, while Radek Faska scored both goals for Dallas. At the time of this recording, there were 2 games still going on Wednesday night. Going into the third period, the Oilers and Canucks were tied 3-3. Drake Kajulis has scored 2 goals for the Oilers, and Griffin Reinhart had the third goal, while Troy Stetcher, Brendan Gaunce, and Joe LeBay each have a goal for Vancouver. Again, that game is 3-3 in the third period. And in the late game on Wednesday, again, a game that is still going on, the Kings are leading the Ducks 3-0 with about 5 minutes left in the second period. Nick Dowd, Devin Setaguchi, and Justin Ogier each have a goal for LA, while Peter Budaj and Tom McCullum have split duties in the nets for the Kings. And those are all the games that have happened up to the time of the recording of this podcast. So let's go ahead and talk about the 3 games that we had agreed we were going to talk about. That would be the Bruins' first game, the Rangers' first game, and the Hurricanes' first game.
That's right.
Okay?
I guess that's how it's going to go this season, too.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. We'll talk about the big games, the big matchups that got a lot of ratings and got a lot. But our teams that we'll primarily be focusing on this season will be the Bruins, which is my team, the Rangers, which is Steve's team, and then the Hurricanes, which would be the local team for our area.
Very good.
All right. So let's talk about the Bruins first. Their first game they played against the Blue Jackets again, playing their third game in 2 nights. The Bruins actually lost that game 3-2 to the Blue Jackets. Now, I don't really take any stock into actual results in the preseason because I don't know what every team does, but I know the Bruins put their younger guys and their minor league guys in a lot into the preseason games, so I don't think they're too concerned about results. Like, for example, here are some of the names that were scratched from the Bruins or just didn't play. Obviously, Bergeron, Marchand, Chara are still playing World Cup, so they didn't play. Tuukka Rask, Adam McQuaid, David Backes, David Krejci, Torrey Krug, Ryan Spooner, and Matt Bolesky, all regular guys on the Bruins roster, did not play Monday night.
Right.
So that gave the young kids a chance. And there were a few names that kind of jumped out at me as guys that I thought were playing pretty well. For one, Jake DeBrusk, Austin Sarnik, Dan Heinen, Jacob Zboril, and Brandon Carlo all look good to me.
Yeah, they did.
They all look very good.
I was impressed with the play of Austin Zarnik, particularly Austin Zarnik and Brandon Carlo, with a footnote star or whatever to Danton Heinen as well. He played. All 3 of those guys played very well.
Yep.
You were telling me that you believe Austin Zarnik has a good chance of making the team.
Well, with the injury to Frank Vetrano, sounds like he's going to be out 3 months. He had 36 goals in the American Hockey League last year and was expected to end up on the top 6 this year. At least that's the talk around Boston was. That's really keeping an open spot on the Bruins roster. And there's been a lot of talk that Austin Zarnik might actually make the team.
Yeah.
With some of the openings that they have. And they've also been talking about Heinen making the team as well. But I guess time will tell what will happen. And I think that's why they're playing a lot of the young guys that they have so they can essentially let them duke it out for the last spots. One guy that actually played in the game, he was a recent signing, or he's actually just got a pro tryout contract, and that's Peter Mueller. He's been over in Europe for the past couple of seasons, and to me it looked like it shows that he's been playing at a lower level because he seemed, particularly in the first period and a half, he looked very rusty, a little bit behind the play. He just didn't look like he was up to NHL standards. And I was hoping that a guy like him, because he was a high round draft pick when he first got drafted. I mean, it's been 10 years, obviously, since he got drafted. But I was hoping he might come in and surprise some people. But it is only one game, and hopefully he'll get his feet under him and maybe impress in future games. Back in net, we had Hudobin and McIntyre both split the game, which you're going to see a lot in the preseason. You'll see teams play one guy for a period and a half or 2 periods and then bring in another guy to finish the game just so everybody gets a chance to play.
Right.
And Hudobin looked pretty good. He's projected to be the backup for Tuukka Rask. McIntyre's projected to be one of the guys sent down to the American Hockey League. So nothing really outstanding there to point out.
Right.
On the goaltending front. I mean, it's obviously Tuukka Rask net anyway, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's move on to the Rangers game. They came out and won their first game at home against the Islanders.
I was very pleased with that win. But again, like you say, preseason, I don't put a lot of stock into it. And definitely with the Rangers, it's the same thing as it is with the Bruins. They're putting, they had 50 players. They cut it down to 40 players. There's a lot of players that see playing time these first few games, first 2 or 3 games that really, aren't going to be on the team, and they're getting some time on the ice at Madison Square Garden and getting a feel for what these guys can do. And some of them are just starting out. So it's the same way. I doubt if Henrik plays one preseason game, that's probably all he's going to play, maybe 1 or 2 at the most, because he's had the World Cup tune-up. So
and I think you'll see a lot of teams do that with their World Cup guys. They'll have them sit for most of the preseason because they've already had several games at the at a high level of play. So the preseason is essentially supposed to be a tune-up. They're just not going to play in the early part, which will free up space for some of the young kids to play anyway.
Yeah. I will say this in regards, I watched the first period today on the replay of the Rangers game. I had to do some more preparation for this podcast, but I was not able to see the whole game. But the first period was enough for me to tell you that I'm very, very, very impressed with Mika Zibanejad. And I think he's going to, it's preseason and you never know. But I think he's going to fit in very well on the Rangers team. And it's probably going to be that second line. And Vigneault, in his news conference yesterday or last night, said this line has been performing the best of any of the lines the Rangers have. And that's Chris Kreider, Pavel Buchnevich, and Mika Zibanejad.
Yep.
That's the line that he is very, very impressed with.
Yep.
And I think Buchnevich may make the team. I really think he may make the team. And can speak a lick of English.
And Zibanejad actually was very impressive to me. In the game that I saw, they replayed it actually this afternoon as we record this. By far, Zibanejad, to me, was the best player on the ice for the Rangers.
Yep.
And Buchnevich didn't look all that bad either. He had a couple of moments where, you saw them doing some pretty heavy coaching with him on the bench, like, just trying to get him used to the system over here because he's used to that European hockey, which is a little bit more of an East-West game, whereas NHL kind of wants to be a little bit more North-South,
right.
Particularly this day and age. But he didn't have any points, but he was still a +2.
Yeah.
So he did all right.
Yes, he did.
And Clendening, Kreider, and Peary each had 2 points.
Yes. Clendening played great.
Yep.
I think on the defensive side, we have 4 defensemen, and they're looking for 2. I think Dylan McElrath will make the team. I think Clendening, if he plays another game or 2 like this, is probably going to make the team because they have a slot open for him.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Now, one note that I saw there, Josh Joris, one of the young players for the Rangers, he only played 4 shifts. And I heard later on in the game, they announced that he had hurt his groin. So we'll have to wait and see if that's going to be a long-term thing or a short-term thing. So I don't know if you think Joris is going to make the team or not. But
at this stage, I just don't know. I know they cut it down to 40 players on their roster. I think once you get down to like 20, the 28, 27, 28, they get down to that, nitty-gritty time. You're going to know whether or not he's in the chance to make the team is inevitable or whatever. They'll know by that point.
Yeah, and there were a number of Rangers that didn't play today. Obviously, Lundqvist, Zuccarello, Lundqvist just finished his World Cup play, but Zuccarello's still playing. He plays for Europe. Jimmy Vesey, Rick Nash, Ryan McDonough, Derek Stepan, JT Miller, and Kevin Hayes all didn't play in that first game.
Yeah.
So obviously you can only dress so many guys, so they have to make room for the young guys.
I think that next game, that's the lines. Those guys, with the exception of Henrik and Zuccarello, I think that's going to be the lines that Vigneault will put together. Probably see Kevin Hayes along with Jimmy Vesey. They're close together.
Yep.
And perhaps Rick Nash on a line together. I think that's what'll pan out in Game 2 or perhaps Game 3, as he jockeys the lines around
Yep.
Hey, how does this line look with that? I think that's what's going to happen.
Well, I'm fully expecting the Bruins to basically everybody who didn't play Game 1 will be playing Game 2.
Right.
And I think the Rangers will probably do the same, with the exception of some of the World Cup guys. I don't think we'll see Tuukka Rask probably till Game 3 because there's a couple of other minor league goalies. Subban still hasn't played in net yet for Boston. And they've got another guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but there's another guy that's deep in the depth chart. And I'm expecting they'll probably play that kid and Subban in the next game, and then we'll probably see Tuukka Rask Game 3 because Tuukka played, obviously, for Finland. And then the Rangers will probably do the same. They've got a couple of young goaltenders that they'll want to give a look to. So
Brandon Halverson.
Yep. So let's go on and move on to the local team around here, the Carolina Hurricanes. They went up to Washington and beat them 2-1 in their first preseason game.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an overtime win. Justin Fox scored the overtime winner, and Brian Bickles scored the other game for the Hurricanes. Eddie Lack and Nedeljkovic split time in net for Carolina. Nothing really stood out to me offensively for the Hurricanes in this game. I only saw highlights of it. I didn't really see the game itself. But there just wasn't a whole lot there, either from the highlights I saw or from the, on paper, as far as stuff that jumps out, which is kind of what we were questioning with the Hurricanes, is whether or not they'd have enough offense to do well. Obviously, again, there were several players that will be on the team that didn't play. Ward, Skinner, Sebastian Aho, Elias Lindholm, Teravainen, Hannafin, Rask, and Murphy all didn't play. And those are all guys that are going to make the team, without a doubt.
Yep.
So again, they played a lot of young guys, but they got the win. But again, it doesn't mean much.
That's right. It's preseason, and it's a tune-up for the guys, and a chance for coaches to grab them to the side and say, hey, you need to do this, or you're doing good on this, and it's not really any correlation between the preseason and the regular season.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on to news stories that have come out. There's actually been quite a few. Last week we didn't have a whole lot, but this week we do have quite a few. And this is in really no particular order. I'm kind of jumping around. In general, it's more of most recent to going back a week. But the first one I want to talk about is something that just came out yesterday. Wayne Gretzky was introduced as the Centennial Ambassador for the NHL. This is an official position. It's his first real job in the NHL since he was a coach for the Phoenix Coyotes, or what is now the Arizona Coyotes. But the NHL is coming out with, they're going to have a year-long celebration of 100 years of NHL hockey that starts on January 1st and concludes at the end of next year. So the entire calendar month of 2017 will be a celebration of the NHL's 100th year in existence. Gretzky said, "This is the greatest game in the world. Everything I have in my life is because of the National Hockey League and the game of hockey. So when the commissioner called me a couple of months ago and asked me if I wanted to be involved in this, he said, absolutely. He said, it's a great thrill for me. And of course, in this press conference, they released a bunch of plans for some of the things that they're going to be doing for the celebration. One is the biggest one that they've announced is they're going to have the Centennial Classic outdoor game between the Maple Leafs and the Red Wings at BMO Field in Toronto on January 1st. Now, this explains why we don't have an outdoor game on January. Remember, the Winter Classic up to this point has been on January 1st, right?
Right.
Well, this year it's on the 2nd.
Right.
And there was no explanation as to why there wasn't no outdoor game on the 1st. So this explains that. They are going to have an outdoor game. It's just going to be the Centennial Classic, not the Winter Classic.
So there's going to be one on the 1st and then one on the 2nd.
Yeah, the Winter Classic will be on the 2nd. Yeah. And that one is in St. Louis, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep. St. Louis is playing Chicago.
Yep. So the Leafs and Red Wings will be playing in Toronto on the 1st. So
that'll be a good game.
That should be a pretty decent game. Yeah. So, and it went on to say Gretzky's expected to be present at many of the events planned around the Centennial, including the Centennial Classic and the All-Star Weekend that's going to be in LA from January 27th through the 29th. when the top 100 players of all time will be revealed at the All-Star Weekend. That'll be an interesting list.
That will be.
Who do you think's going to be number one?
I mean, Wayne may be number one, but, Bobby Orr, perhaps.
Well, you're going to see Wayne and Bobby Orr and Gordie Howe are probably going to be in the top 5 for sure.
Yeah, Gordie Howe, maybe Bobby Hull, I don't know. It's so many players that, Jaromir Jagr, watch out. He's going to be up there.
So many great players over the years for sure. Among the other events, they're going to have celebrations in Ottawa in March to commemorate 125 years of the Stanley Cup, and in December to honor the 100th anniversary of the first NHL games played.
Yeah.
So it will hold celebrations in Montreal to honor the league's 100th birthday in November, and in December, and this is next year, not this year, and in December to commemorate the first games. So obviously the Cup is 25 years older than the league, but the league took control of it when the league started up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's an interesting story coming out of all those, and I'm going to add the audio of it right after this, right after I get your reaction to it. But I don't know if you saw the press conference, but there was
Wayne Gretzky and Gary Bettman? Yes, yeah. I did see that.
What did you think about him talking about his visit to the Hall of Fame when he showed up with his son?
I didn't see that part. I didn't see that part.
Well, I'm going to add the audio to this thing here shortly, but so you can hear it out in his words. But
I went to tell the story a couple of years ago. I took my son, who at the time was 11 or 12, and I had a hat on, and I went into the Hall of Fame, and I just told him, keep your head down. We walked around for 2 hours. We went down, saw everything there was to see, and we went down to the part where you could actually interact and take some shots. So my son got out there, and he was 4 for 5. And so he said, Dad, try it. So I said, okay. And I got out there, and I missed the first 3 shots I took. And the young man who was taking care of the line walked over to me and said, sir, if you move your hand down the stick a little bit farther. And I lifted my hat up, and I said, go get me one of those pucks that are in there. There's 802 up there. My son killed himself laughing, and I got out of there. But I love every part of the Hall of Fame. It's just, it's heaven to me. I love it there.
No, I did not.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. All right. Well, on to the next story. On the 28th, that's today, Andrew Shaw is going to have a hearing with the Department of Player Safety. Here we go. Andrew Shaw is already starting.
Yep.
Montreal forward faces discipline from NHL for hit on Washington defenseman Connor Hobbs. That's the headline. The incident occurred at 17:50 into the second period of a preseason game at Bell Center on Tuesday when Shaw checked Hobbs into the end boards. Shaw received a major penalty for boarding, a major penalty for fighting with Capitals forward Nathan Walker, and a 10-minute misconduct and a game misconduct. Hobbs remained in the game, a 5-2 victory for the Canadiens. So Hobbs wasn't hurt, which will help shorten Andrew Shaw's suspension, but the fact that he's already having hearings with the Department of Player Safety is going to really make me love this guy when they come play the Bruins.
You know what I'm hoping? You know how they come on the news and they say the Department of Player Safety really breaks down these videos.
Yes, they do.
As the video will show. Blah, 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 so-and-so happens. He led with his right arm, and as you can see, blah, blah, blah. They really break down the video to show why they make the judgments that they do.
Yep.
I hope they have George Peros take over the narrative of those,
I think
player safety.
I think he will. I think that's his job.
Oh, man, he'd be good at it,
Yeah.
That's what
our first video is pending. We'll find out. And not surprisingly, it's a Montreal Canadien.
Yeah, that's something.
Yep. Okay, on to the next one. Also today, Kyle Quincy agreed to a 1-year contract with the Devils. The 31-year-old defenseman spent the past 4+ seasons with the Red Wings. Defenseman Kyle Quincy, the contract was a 1-year, one-way contract worth $1.25 million. So obviously a depth signing there for the Devils.
Yeah, no question about it. He played for the Red Wings, right? Yeah, Kyle Quincy comes out of Detroit.
Yep.
Yeah.
On the 27th, Senators announced that they are moving their AHL team from Binghamton to Belleville, Ontario. And I know the folks in Belleville are very excited because a it's at the end of not last year, but the year before. The Belleville Bulls, I believe, moved, and they were left without a high-level team in their city. Not that it's a real big city, but the Belleville Bulls play in the Ontario Hockey League.
Oh yeah.
So they're going to be doing some upgrades to the arena where the Bulls played, and bring it up to AHL standards. And then I don't know if it's going to be the Belleville Senators or not, but I guess Eugene Melnick, the owner of the Senators, bought the Binghamton Senators and then announced that he's going to move them to Belleville, which will bring them kind of doing what a lot of teams are doing, bringing the team closer to the main club so that if they have to call a guy up, he's just a couple hours drive away. They don't have to fly or anything like that.
I agree with you. And, they're pulling a team that's been around for a long time. If you go, the Binghamton Senators have been around since 1972 in the AHL. Yeah. So he bought a team, a well-established team.
There's been a team in Binghamton since 72, but they've been an Ottawa affiliate since 2002.
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct. But, they
used to be the Rangers, didn't they?
Pardon?
They used to be the Rangers affiliate, the Binghamton Rangers. I remember from my youth that they were at once the Binghamton Rangers.
Okay. I always trust you, Wayne.
At one time or another they were anyway.
But that's a team, those upstate New York teams like Utica, what's the team? Rochester, the Rochester Americans. Those teams have been around for a long time in the AHL.
Yep.
And this one, I understand Mr. Melnick buying the team, and it's a good thing to do. He now has control of his farm team as well as the pro team. But they're pulling a team out of Binghamton that's been there for a long time. So I wonder if Binghamton is going to be left without a hockey team.
I believe the people that are high up in that, I can't say the owners of the Binghamton team, but the owners of the arena, I guess, have promised that there will be a team brought in.
Oh, okay.
To start the season. There will be a team in Binghamton, is what they're saying anyway right now. But no announcement's been made one way or the other of who that team will be.
Right. You got the Utica Comets, the Rochester Americans. There's some teams up there, like I said, that they've been around a long time in the AHL, and those upstate New York fans are crazy. They love hockey in New York. You know that.
We know one thing. There's a NHL team in Las Vegas that will need a minor league team.
Hey, there you go. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and I didn't want to talk about Las Vegas in this episode, but here they are, creeping up again.
So it'll be the Binghamton Sand Gnats. Or no.
Yeah, you got the Sand Gnats out in the Sand Knights out in Vegas and the Sand Gnats in Binghamton.
Oh, that one will ring across the phone lines now, won't it? I'll be paying for that one.
Yeah, the Sand Gnats. That's actually not bad. They should go with it. All right. On the 26th, Nikita Nesterov signed a one-year deal with the Lightning. He was a restricted free agent. He's actually been playing for Team Russia in the World Cup as a restricted free agent. It's a one-year deal worth $725,000 with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Obviously, looks like the Lightning aren't ready to give this guy too much of a contract, so they just signed him for 1 year, and then they'll try to renegotiate next year, depending on how he does this year. But last year, he had 3 goals and 6 assists in 57 games for the Lightning. He was a 5th-round pick in the 2011 NHL Draft. He's got 16 points in 84 career games over the past 2 seasons with Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. So it's a signing that we've been waiting for from them. That's a guy that they need to fill out their top 6 and defensemen for sure. Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of extensions, Brad Marchand, the Bruins, signed a big extension this week. He signed an 8-year, $49 million contract with the Bruins. That will make him a Boston Bruin until age 37.
Yeah.
And that contract includes several years of no movement clauses for a good half of the contract, and then the second half is a limited, or whatever they call it, partial no movement, or I can't remember what they call it, limited.
Yeah.
So Brad Marchand's going to be around, to the disappointment of some other teams that have had some eyes on him. He still has a year left on his current contract, so he's essentially with the Bruins for the next 9 years. And I was listening to a lot of the Boston media this week since they announced this, some of the radio stations and a lot of the press, and I can't find anybody who's unhappy with this deal.
Right. I was going to say that. He earned this. As a matter of fact, he could have got more money.
Well, and I think that's what makes people happy. Some people are a little concerned about the length of the contract, but his cap hit is only $6.125 per year.
And his cap's going to soar 72, 80, 90 million. It's going to keep going up. So he's going to be not going to be a very expensive guy to keep, and the Boston area loves him. It's an original 6 team. Why, if you're successful, would you leave? He's doing the right thing for his career, I think, and for the city of Boston.
Some players don't want that hot spotlight that comes with playing for the Bruins. But he had a big year last year, 37 goals. He's having a huge World Cup playing on the Sidney Crosby line. Right now he's on top of the hockey world. He's going nuts right now. So everybody in Boston is very happy with this signing at this point. We'll see in 3 or 4 years if his production keeps up, they should remain happy. But if he becomes a 15, 20 goal scorer in 2 or 3 years, you're going to start seeing some unhappy people in Boston about it. But
I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
Not with Brad Marchand. Maybe 5 or 6 years out. But I think Brad Marchand is. I'm glad. I'm happy for the Bruins, man. They got a great play. He's a great player.
Yeah,
he really is.
He's 28 now, so I would assume that at least 4 to 6 years of real solid production, and then we'll see what happens from there. Okay, we've got some injury news. On the 25th, Clark MacArthur was diagnosed with a concussion. He's with the Senators. He got injured after being hit by a teammate in practice. He's 31 years old, has 91 points in 145 games with the Senators. He left practice early after he was hit from behind by teammate Patrick Seeloff. MacArthur missed the Senators' last 78 games of last season after sustaining a concussion on October 14th. So obviously they're very concerned having a concussion already again this season. And his injury comes just a day after the Senators forward Mark Stone was diagnosed with a concussion on Saturday.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of issues already coming out of the Senators camp. I think they're hitting each other a little too hard up there.
It's tough. And those concussion things, you have to be cleared by a doctor in order to go back and play. You may be fine. You may feel fine, is what I hear a lot of times. But because a doctor has to okay your return to the ice, it makes it very frustrating when you have that injury.
I'm surprised that with MacArthur missing all but 4 games essentially last year with concussion, that they would allow him to be hit in the training camp. I mean, I guess he's got to eventually get hit before he can get back into a game. But why so early?
Oh, that's a good question, Wayne.
So, got to question the coaching a little bit there. On the 24th, Jets defenseman Jacob Trouba requested a trade. The report said that I saw read that restricted free agent wants to play the right side D, and he's not going to attend training camp until they trade him. He's a restricted free agent now, so he doesn't have to go. He's not required to go, and they can't force him to go. But he said that he's requested the trade from the Winnipeg Jets because they won't use him on the right side. He said he wants to play on the right side to realize his potential. He's only 22 years old, so he's mostly potential at this point. And he said that's not going to happen in Winnipeg. This has nothing to do with Winnipeg as a city. This is about me getting the chance to be the best player I can be. I've worked hard to get this far. I don't want to look back in 20 years and wish I hadn't just gone with the flow. Sometimes you have to put yourself first. This isn't an easy decision, but I want to play on the right side. He was selected as the Jets with the number 9 overall pick in the 2012 draft. He had 6 goals and 15 assists and led Winnipeg defensemen with a +10 rating in 81 games last year. The Jets had said, their GM said, "We're aware of the statement issued by Kurt Overhart," which is Trouba's agent. This is Kevin Cheveldayoff, that said these things. Over the last 3 seasons, Jacob Trouba has played a key role for the Jets, and in our view still represents an important part of the long-term future of our club. As such, any decisions made regarding Trouba will be made in the best interest of the Winnipeg Jets Hockey Club. And they're declining any further comment until things are resolved. Now, it should be noted, of course, he's saying he wants a bigger role. He won't be on the right side. And I looked it up, and it's basically because Dustin Byfuglien and Tyler Myers are higher up than him on the depth chart. And the reason he's making a big deal over this is right-hand defensemen are very hard to come by this day and age. Most strong defensemen are left-hand shots and are on the left side. So to have a team that's got 3 strong right-hand shot defensemen is probably the only team that's got 3.
Wow.
He could potentially, to defend him a little bit, he's a top pairing D on a lot of other teams.
Okay.
And I think that's what he's after.
And that's my ignorance I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, and forgive me because I had my own opinion on this, and I won't share that now because it's wrong.
And as teams go more and more into the analytics of over analyzing statistics and all that, they're essentially making right shot defensemen much more valuable than they have been in the past. Every team wants to have at least 1 or 2 good ones, and the Jets have 3. So Trouba's number 3 on that list. And he's seeing that he won't get enough playing time on the right side staying on the Jets, so he's requesting that they move him. So, but the Jets are essentially holding all the cards at this point.
I really don't have anything to say on it. I'm going to follow what you said on it. I was not aware of that, and that makes a total change in my thinking on it.
And of course, in Boston, listening to all the press there, they're all trying to figure out a way to get Jacob Trouba to come to Boston.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Boston values and covets defensemen, I think, more than any team in the NHL.
And they need a real strong defenseman, never mind a right shot defenseman. I mean, that would be just a bonus at this point. So who knows? Maybe we'll see something there. But I'm not going to hold my breath.
Yeah.
Okay, on the 24th, Bruins' Frank Vetrano was announced that he's going to miss 3 months. He's got to have surgery to repair torn ligaments in his left foot. So he's going to be out for 3 months, and he was projected to make the top 6 on this team. He's only 22 years old. He had 8 goals and 11 points in 39 games with the Bruins last year, but the big headline with him was he had 36 goals in 36 games with the Providence Bruins last year.
Yeah.
And if he were to even come close to that at the NHL level, this right now it's not a big loss for Boston because they never really had him yet, but that could be a big loss for them down the road. But for the next 3 months anyway, they're going to have to wait and see what he'll do for them. On the 24th, the Penguins goalie Matt Murray got injured, and he broke his hand during World Cup competition.
Yes.
It's expected that he's going to need 3 to 6 weeks to recover from that injury, which isn't too bad for the Penguins. They still have Marc-Andre Fleury, so
right. They fall back on a Stanley Cup winning goalie.
Well, they got 2. They essentially have 2 Stanley Cup winning goalies now.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Because Murray was in net for for last year's Cup run.
Yeah.
So that was a goaltender controversy that was that was pending anyway. So that'll just get pushed back for a few weeks.
Yeah.
On the 24th, New York Islanders defenseman Johnny Boychuk missed the second day of training camp because of an upper body injury, and forward Cal Clutterbuck left practice early because of a lower body injury. Boychuk saw a doctor on Saturday, and Islanders coach Jack Capuano told Newsday that he's out indefinitely because of what Capuano called a nagging injury. I'm not familiar with what injury he's been dealing with.
I'm not either. It's an upper body injury, right?
And Boychuk is their strongest defenseman by.
Let me tell you, by far,
by quite a large margin. Yeah.
Boychuk, the Islanders are in. I mean, we talked about this.
Yep.
The Islanders are a hurting team after this offseason, anyways. And now Johnny Boychuk goes down, and they do not have a replacement for him.
Yep.
They lose Johnny Boychuk.
They're in trouble.
They're in big trouble. First 10, 15 games a season. Oh,
for sure.
Hurt.
Yep. So we'll see how that comes out about for them. On the 23rd, forward Alex Steen signed a 4-year, $23 million contract extension with the Blues. He's entering his 9th season with the Blues after they acquired him in a trade with the Toronto Maple Leafs back in 2008. He was the second on the Blues in assists and points. 5th in goals last year. He also had 4 goals and 6 assists in 20 Stanley Cup playoff games, helping the Blues to advance to the conference final for the first time in 15 years. So that's a good, nice extension for them.
He's a good player.
Yep. On 9/23, the 23rd, the NHL announced that signups are underway for NHL.TV. Now, this is, I guess they went through a name change. This was the old Game Center Live.
Okay.
What it used to be last year. And I'll just read some of the highlights from their press release. They said NHL.TV is the way to watch live hockey in an unprecedented era of competitive balance. Watch every live out-of-market game and select out-of-market preseason games on more than 400 supported devices for one low yearly price. All access were basically $140. Or you can pay monthly for $25 a month. Or you can follow a single team for about $112 for the year. And for the first time this year, preseason games are going to be included in this. And obviously not all preseason games, because not all games are televised. But certain games are going to be on the NHL.TV app. And this app, they've added some new features to it this year. They're going to include a slow motion DVR control for the HD desktop media player. And they're going to have additional on-demand highlights for select connected devices, an all-new app for Apple TV with multi-game streaming. And what makes NHL.TV even more essential is its portability. The app lets you take the action anywhere. Simply log in with your NHL.TV username and password to access live and on-demand hockey from virtually any device with a screen. Right. Or any device connected to one in the case of a Roku. You just need a screen and an internet connection, and you can watch games. So you basically log in, you choose the home or away broadcast, so you can embrace tradition and listen to your favorite play-by-play voices. With NHL.TV, you also get on-demand replays and access to live stats and play-by-play from NHL Game Center. You can follow the action from multiple games at once with Mosaic View and Picture-in-Picture, and it's the sort of thing that comes in especially handy when you have to keep an eye on so many rivals bunched up in the standings.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, I use mine. I actually subscribe to this. This will be my 4th year subscribing to it, I think. Mm-hmm. And I use mine on my big TV in the living room with my Roku. And I have the app on my phone. And then, of course, I watch in the office on my desktop. I can actually use my PlayStation if I want to watch on my TV, which is right above me in my office. So it's amazing. When this came out, I stopped subscribing to the NHL Center Ice, the TV package.
Yeah, that's what I get.
Because the Center Ice is only live games. That's it. That's all you get. Once the game's over, you're done. You can't watch it. Right. Whereas this online one, you can stream games after the fact, or you can just stream highlights if you don't have time to watch the full game. So yeah, I never look back to the Center Ice. This package is way better, and I think the NHL is kind of pushing people to go to this versus Center Ice. I'm sensing they may eventually do away with the Center Ice package.
Well, now let me ask you. Is it different announcers than normal doing the games? Or is it the same announcers that you'd get? I watched Center Ice. I watched Sam Rosen and Joe Micheletti. They're the announcers for the New York Rangers.
Well, on Center Ice, when the Rangers are on the road, don't you get the announcers of the home team?
If the Rangers are on the road, I get the home team announcers. That's correct.
Center Ice, you get to choose. Or the NHL.TV, you get to choose which announcers you want to watch. Well,
and you know what? In certain instances, you do for NHL, for the Center Ice as well, because they may televise both the home feed and the away feed.
Oh, okay.
And what game you want to select, you could actually watch whoever you want. You could watch home announcers or the road announcers.
Yeah. With the NHL.TV, if the game is on TV in a local market, curiously, there's still some NHL markets that don't televise every game. I guess Carolina, they do now, but 2 years ago, Carolina didn't televise every game that they have. But now they do. But if the game is being televised, you can choose the announcers for both teams if it's being televised in both markets.
Okay.
And with the Canadiens, if you're a Canadiens fan, you can choose not only French and English announcers.
Yep.
And then you can also choose the other team that they're playing. So there's 3 feeds you can watch concerning the Montreal Canadiens.
Yep. Yeah, that's very good. And
then you can watch other camera angles. Like last year they had goalie cams. You could watch just the camera, although it doesn't give you any announcers. You essentially watch the overhead camera that looks over the goal, looking straight down, and just watch the goalie moving around. I mean, it's kind of boring to watch it live, but it's kind of a neat thing to just do it once in a while anyway.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
So, yeah, that's definitely, if you've got a good, strong internet connection, I certainly recommend you buying the NHL.TV package versus Center Ice. And the one about buying single team for 112 or buy all access for 140, I don't know why anyone would buy the single team. To me, it doesn't make sense. It's only
right.
$20 more for the total package.
You get the whole thing. That's right. And I, as I said, you and I are both hockey fans, and I've gone to work bleary-eyed. Yep. And can't barely drive to work because I'm so tired. I watched the 7 o'clock broadcast, and then here comes the 10 o'clock game. Well, I watch those sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's the way that, so why would you?
This year, I'm probably going to tune into a lot of Oilers games, so that'll be some late nights there.
Yeah, I'm going to be seeing you coming to work bleary-eyed, Wayne.
Well, and a lot of times what I do is if I ref a lot of nights and I'll come home at midnight and I can't just go straight from coming home from the rink and go straight to bed. So usually what I'll do to wind down is I'll come home, sit down, turn the game on until I get, a little sleepy. And usually it's the West Coast games on at that hour. So So I do tune into a lot of Kings games and Sharks games and Vancouver games. Yeah. Just because, I'm coming home at that late hour. So anyway, let's move on to our Central Division. This is a final installment of our team previews. And we've got the Central Division this week.
That's right.
So, and Steve has prepared a lot of notes, and I will let him lead this segment, and I'll fill in where I feel I need to.
You need to fill in as much as you possibly can, Wayne. But no, I look forward. This is, year in, year out in years past, wouldn't you say the Central Division has been the toughest division in hockey?
Absolutely.
They seem to get 5 teams in more often than not. If you can come out of the Central Division with a good divisional record, chances are those teams not only win the first round of the playoffs, they go far. They usually do very well. So it's the best division in hockey again this year, I believe.
Yeah, that division is. I mean, I feel bad for anybody that plays in that division. There's just so many good teams there.
Yeah.
So
top to bottom.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, top to bottom is definitely very strong. So, which team did you want to start with?
I started with the Chicago Blackhawks.
Okay.
And I go in alphabetical order this week, Wayne.
Okay.
So, you start out with them. First question I asked myself, can they return to the Western Conference Finals? And if you think about it, they were there the year before last, 2 years in a row. And they almost went to the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row. The Kings really had to go to 7 games. And the Kings wound up winning that year. But I think they're going to go back to the Western Conference Finals again this year. When it comes to offensive power and defensive power, this team has it both. They have it on both sides of the net. They have a great offensive team and they have a great defensive team, and they really, albeit have an adequate, maybe a little above average, but certainly not a Hall of Famer goalie. They have a good goalie.
Yep.
But because they are so good on the offensive side of the puck and on the defensive side of the puck, they don't have to have an all-star stand on your head, knock them out goalie. They really don't.
Well, he's good enough to make Team Canada.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but I agree with you. He's not at that group of goalies that are at the top. He's not in that group. He's like at the next tier down below.
I agree.
And the team they got, obviously the core is still there. You got your Taves and you got your Kane and you got your Duncan Keith and, all the big names that have gotten them to where they, the 3 Stanley Cups they've won are still there. But I think this team has gotten a little bit weaker than they were last year because they had some salary cap losses they had to deal with. They lost Teuvo Teravainen. They lost Brian Bickle, Andrew Shaw, Andrew Ladd. Dale Weiss is a fourth line guy that they lost. But the guys they got coming in, I think the only ones I saw they added was Brian Campbell and Jordan Tutu.
Well, they got Artemi Panarin, who is coming into his second year, who basically was a rookie, and now look at him. I mean, he's going to be tremendous. So they weren't expecting that.
Yeah. He'll help.
Right. And I think if you look at this team, and yes, they did lose some players. Andrew Ladd was a big loss, no doubt about it. And Shaw is a big loss too. But if you look at this team, top to bottom, they're not hurting that bad. They still got the main core in place to do this again, to do another run. The thing is, will they? They know how to win in the playoffs. They know how to win down the stretch.
Yep.
They're not. All they're going to look to do is make it into a reasonable position in the playoffs if they can do it. And this is barring injuries or things that may happen that may hurt their chances. But no, I don't see this team lacking anything to get back to the Western Conference Finals, and from there it's a crapshoot.
Yeah. No, they're without a doubt a playoff team. This team is just gonna coast into the playoffs fairly easily.
And one thing came to mind when I was doing the strengths and weaknesses. One of the things that happened was it's probably a good thing they exited early from the playoffs last year. At the hands of St. Louis. Because for 5 years, they have played more playoff games than any team. They played like 63 playoff games, which is like almost another season on the ice in the playoffs.
Yep, and that takes its toll.
Sure does. An extra month to sit at home and rest. And I think that may come in handy this year. The team may be more well-rested.
And I think the last time they missed the playoffs, they went all the way to the final, may even won it.
That's right.
Or
in 13?
Not the last time they missed the playoffs. The last time they got knocked out early. Was it 2012 they got knocked out early, didn't they?
It might have been 12, yeah.
And then they came back and won the cup in 13.
In 13,
so, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing that I see is Scott Darling is a good backup goalie, but they're going to need Corey Crawford to be stellar, and he's going to have to be playing a lot of games, 60, 65 games. They can't sit there with Darling and put him in net, 30 games of the year. They're going to need Crawford to be in playing up to his potential for the team to go far in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I didn't think Darling played too bad, but he's definitely not the starter there for sure.
Right.
Cool.
That sews them up. It's pretty simple one there. They're going to make the playoffs. The next team I had was the Colorado Avalanche. Okay. Will they make the playoffs? And I put no.
I don't see it.
I think when Patrick Roy left this team, there went their playoff chances. And he resigned from the team. He quit on them.
Yep.
There went their playoff chances. I just don't see them being able to pick up the pieces. And this Bednar coach may be the best thing since sliced bread. But it's just very, very hard to learn a new system, to learn a new mentality, to go through all of that, and they had 1 month to do it. I just don't see them pulling it together.
Yeah, Patrick Waugh quit very, very late, and that really put Colorado in a spot. They ended up finding Bednar, but obviously if Waugh would have quit at the end of last season, they might have had a shot at someone a little bit better than, or what the rest of the world would deem to be better than Bednar, because Bednar is relatively inexperienced in particularly at the NHL level. So time will tell to see how he'll do, but having Waugh quit as late as he did, I think really put them in a bad spot.
Right.
And it's at the very least means they're gonna get off to probably a rough start this year. And we've seen in the past, if you fall too far behind too quickly early in the season, it's way too difficult to get caught up in today's NHL.
In that division, particularly.
And in that division especially, yeah.
Yep. Great offensive talent. Nathan McKinnon, Matt Duchene, Gabriel Landeskog, Jerome Iginla is still scoring 20, 30 goals a year.
Yep.
But I see it as he's got 1 year left on his contract. I don't think anybody's going to offer him a lot of money after this one, unless he really gets a boost of tremendous adrenaline. And
I think Iginla would be a good candidate for someone to be traded towards if Colorado does in fact miss the playoffs. Iginla would be a good candidate to join a contending team late in the year at the deadline.
And I'm not sure of his contract situation on general manager as we speak. but that may be a perfect pick for the Las Vegas expansion team, Jerome McGinley.
Yeah, if he decides he wants to come back next year. I think he's 39, so.
Yeah, he's 39 years old.
Yeah.
But he had 22 or 24 goals last year. He had a great year. So offense-wise, Colorado is dangerous. They're a good team. They win games at home. You know, I mean, I'm saying they're not going to make the playoffs, but if this Bednar guy comes in there and really, and I'm not very familiar with him, if he turns it around and is able to really exert a lot of influence over that lineup, gets some lines that start clicking and has a defense that comes together, they could make the playoffs, and I'm sitting here with egg on my face. I wouldn't be surprised, you know?
Well, you know, I think for one, Nathan McKinnon is going to have a huge year. He had I mean, we only saw him for 3 games in the World Cup, but he did really well for the North Americans in those 3 games.
Yeah.
I think he's poised to have a big year. He had 52 points last year. I think you're going to see that go higher this year.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Colorado is lousy on team defense. They had the 3rd most shots on goal in the 6th worst goals against mark in the league. So it wasn't a matter many nights whether they could score, 3-4 goals. They were giving up a whole bunch of goals.
Trying to keep it out of the net. Yeah.
Yep. So that has to improve. So I think the Patrick Waugh situation and their defense are 2 things that put them where I think they'll be this year. And that's finishing either 6th or 7th in the division.
Yep. Okay.
Let's see. After that, I had
Dallas.
The Dallas Stars. That's correct.
Dallas Stars. All right.
They're going to make the playoffs.
You think?
Yeah, they're going to make the playoffs, but I don't think they'll make it to the Western Conference Finals. Defense and goaltending need to improve in order for them to do that. Mm-hmm. No doubt they're the best offensive team in the league.
For sure.
No question about it. Probably will be again this year. Jamie Benn, Jason Spezza,
Tyler Seguin, yeah.
Just go right down the line. They got all Patrick Sharp. Think about it. They got tremendous offensive talent, but their problem is defense and goaltending. And when it comes to the playoffs, that's what you need.
Yep.
So I'm being a little quick with this, but please jump in if you've got something to add on this. They have a goaltending core where they're spending $10.4 million.
Well, yeah, they got essentially 2 starters with Kari Lehtinen and Annie Niemi. Yeah, I think you're going to see them try to move one of those guys because unless they're going to want to just let one of those go to Las Vegas, I can't see them keeping Lehtinen. He's getting up there in age. I think they might keep Niemi, but in either case, neither one has really stood out as a dominant goaltender. Niemi did it for a short time. He was really, really strong. But last season, I don't know if it was the defense in front of him or what it was, but neither one of them put up huge goaltending numbers.
Right.
And preventing the puck going in their own net was their biggest issue. As good as they were, I mean, they had 109 points last year, so they won 50 games. So it's not like we're dealing with a lot of losses, but they got a lot of their wins by just simply, outscoring
their opponents.
Yeah. I mean, that line with Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin is just incredibly fun to watch.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But once playoff time rolls around, everything changes.
Oh, they did lose Valerie Nikushkin, though. Remember,
That's
we talked about that last week. He's an up-and-comer for them.
Went to the KHL.
Yeah.
So
that'll hurt them a little bit in terms, probably on the second line more than anything.
Yep. I've got forwards at Patrick Sharp, Jason Spezza,
Cody Aiken, Alice Hemsky,
yep. Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, Patrick Eves, Antoine Rousset, Yuri Hoodler's on that team now.
Yep.
They're loaded. They got a lot of talent. Yep. They really do. It'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yep.
Next team I had was the Nashville Predators.
Okay.
And I'm picking them, I'll just say off the bat before, we're not even to the point where I'm putting down my picks yet, but I'm picking them to win the division.
Really? Okay.
I think the Nashville Predators are going to really have a great year.
Because of Subban?
I think Subban is going to get the fans down there coming to the games, and they're going to be selling out games. I just see them as really, this trade really resonated this summer. It was the big news in the NHL, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that team, they've been making little steps up every year, getting in the playoffs. Trotz had them going pretty well. And then in steps Peter Laviolette, and he knows, he won the Stanley Cup with the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yep.
He knows how to put the team into the playoffs, and he knows how to win a Stanley Cup. I just see them as this may be the year where they not only win the division, but make it to the Western Conference Finals.
And if Peter Laviolette coaches this team the same way he coached the Carolina Hurricanes in their Cup year, Nashville is going to be a fun team to watch because he likes to play with speed and go hard up and down the ice. And Subban obviously is not afraid to do that from the back end. I think you're going to see, as much as the Montreal Canadiens put reins and chains on him to try to keep him under control, you're going to see those come off with Nashville, and you're going to see Subban do what Subban does best.
I agree with you 100%. Their defense is awesome. They got Subban, who basically just steps right into Shea Weber's shoes if they want him to.
Yep. They
got Roman Josi. If you think about everything Nashville has, as far they got Roman Josi, PK Subban, Matthias Ekholm. I'm probably missing Ryan Ellis,
Matt Carl,
Yannick Weber. They have a tremendous defense.
Yep.
One that it's set up for Stanley Cup playoffs hockey.
Well, one could make an argument that Subban's not even the best defenseman on his team. Josi is that good.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. They got two tremendous defensemen. And we've talked about this before. If Rinne does not have the year that he was having, the Vezina type years from, last year was a letdown. He cannot let that happen again. This is all contingent upon Pekka Rinne playing the way he usually does.
Yep.
Having the type of year he usually does.
And he looked pretty good for Finland in the World Cup, the games that he played. Because him and Tuukka Rask kind of split time in the World Cup.
Right, but that's the Milwaukee Admirals is their AHL affiliate. I hear they do have a good goaltender in the wings, but they're still trying to bring him up. The backup to Pekka Rinne is Marek Mazanik, and you'll have to forgive me if I pronounce that wrong. I'm not familiar with him.
That's how I would have said it.
But they have this Yuse Saros, who is in there, the Milwaukee Admirals. I believe he's the Milwaukee Admirals goalie.
Yep.
And they're priming him to bring him up. So they've got some help on the way for Pekka Rinne. I just don't know whether it's going to happen this year. May happen next year or the year after. But look for them to really do well this year.
Yep.
Next was the Minnesota Wild.
Okay.
I look for them to fall back. They've made the playoffs, let's see. I think this is their 5th consecutive season if they make it this year. And I don't know if they will. Not so much. Here's the thing with them, okay? And I know this is going to – you tell me what you think.
All right.
I listened to a radio broadcast, and I listened to I forget who it was on the team – that said that they are going to have Eric Stahl on the first line, running the first line with Zach Parise and then the name escape. I'm trying off the top of my head here, but Zach Parise, Eric Stahl, and Charlie Coyle are going to be on the first line together.
Really?
And I think they're making a big mistake with Stahl. Here we are in Carolina. We know how he played the last 3 years, and something happened, and I don't know what it is. But without him proving himself in Minnesota, when I heard that, I was like, that doesn't sound good to me. And Boudreau shows no signs of – I'm saying this is after Bruce Boudreau took the lead, the head coaching job. I heard this in the last 2 weeks.
Well –
on Puck Podcast, as a matter of fact. You listened to the episode 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Well, the thing with Stahl, obviously, we got to see him firsthand here in Carolina. And you're right when you said – the last 3 seasons, his production has been in decline. I mean, he only had 36, 39 points last year, something like that,
right?
In a full season. I mean, he played every game,
right?
And he went from he was making $6+ million a year with Carolina, and obviously Minnesota signed him for 3 something.
Right.
So they're definitely getting a deal in that sense. But even when Stahl left the Canes at the deadline and went to the Rangers, he didn't do anything there either.
That's right.
So I don't know what the deal, and he seems a bit young to be going into a steep decline already to me. So I don't know what is going on with his situation, but there seems to be something going on with him that is very concerning. But maybe he's vowed that he's going to come back to the way he used to play, and if he does, great. But to put him on the first line is putting a lot on his shoulders. Now,
for that team.
Now he doesn't have to shoulder the burden of being captain anymore.
Right.
And I know I'm hearing rumblings from Carolina that he didn't really enjoy being the captain, having all those responsibilities. So he's been relieved of those duties for sure in Minnesota. But I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I certainly hope that that to me would be a bad move. But I'm not a Minnesota Wild hockey fan. I'm not in the state of hockey, so I don't know. But that one right there is alarming. And they're also bad at closing games, Wayne. They left points on the table. Other teams picked up points from them in overtime losses and shootouts and that type of thing. And that's, the shootout is a crapshoot. I mean, it really is. 50,
but you should be somewhere near 50-50.
Right.
So
it's the type of thing where you've got to get those points during the season. You can't let them slide. Every time you get in a shootout, hey, this is a big, don't pressure yourself out of winning. But have the confidence to go in there and say, hey, we're the better team. We're going to win this. Yeah,
and to support your argument, in one-goal games last year, there were 17, 17, and 11. So essentially 17 and 28. If you look at that, because those 11 go up as overtime losses. So 17 and 28 is not a very good record in one-goal games.
That's my point.
So, yeah.
The other thing, though, I want to bring up is they hired a great person to be their assistant coach. And this may be the saving grace. And he is a cerebral. I watch him on the NHL Network until he got this job, and that's Scott Stevens.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He did.
Hired him. He will be a great assistant coach.
Scott Stevens and his giant meat hooks. Yeah.
and if he shows up there and gets in those guys' heads, gives them enthusiasm from the Devils years when he played so awesome for the New Jersey Devils, then I may be the guy sitting here at the end of the season with egg on my face. He's really got to be the guy that gets Stahl to play well.
Yeah.
And that's a super hire, and that's a strength to their team.
Here's what I see. I see, because the Central Conference is such a it's such a grind. I only see 4 teams coming out of the Central Division. And the other 4 is going to come out of the Pacific. But and that leaves Minnesota on the outside looking in my mind.
You're right. I agree with you. The next team I had, and this is the last team I'm going to do extensively. I know we got a lot to cover here, but the St. Louis Blues. This is another team that I think is going to step down a little bit in the standings. I think they're going to make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to be first or second like they have been the last several years. Losing Davis Backes, they may say, well, we got lighter and we're faster now with it, but that was a big loss to that team.
That looks more to me like a salary cap loss than anything. I just don't think they could afford him.
You know what? That's a good point. They're excellent at winning the close games. They're an exact opposite of the Minnesota Wild.
Yes,
they know how to win those 1-goal games.
25-4-9 last year.
The best. I think that might be the best or the second best in the NHL.
Have to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they have that in their advantage. They have the confidence in the locker room. That went a big chunk of that went with Backes.
Yep.
He's a locker room guy if ever there was one. Their defense is awesome. But again, their problem is scoring. Other than David Backes and Vladimir Tarasenko, they didn't have a player on their lineup to score 20 goals.
Yeah, Brian Elliott leaving, I think, is going to hurt them too. They're going with Jake Allen as their starter, and obviously he's their future. But will he be good enough right now to replace Elliott?
That's a very good point, Wayne.
Yep,
very good point. So, although Vladimir Tarasenko, can he score 50 goals? Oh, no question in my mind. I was surprised how he played in the World Cup. but that may be a coaching thing. That may not have been his desires. He may have wanted the puck every second of the game on his stick.
Yeah, and he'll get plenty of pucks in St. Louis.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. They, like Washington in the East, they choke in the playoffs. Fair to say, last year was an anomaly. They really never got to the Western Conference Finals, and they played very, very well. But they were all close, grinded out at the end wins. They never really, you didn't see no 6-2 wins on their run there.
And I think part of that you'll see Backus's absence felt on games like that. I think this team will make the playoffs. I just don't think they're going to go far. I agree with you there.
There we go.
And I don't think it'll even be a choke. I think they're just taking a step back.
I think so too.
I don't think they can compete with the Chicagos and the Nashvilles of the division anymore.
I agree with you. The last team on our list is the Winnipeg Jets. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs either. Good coach, Paul Maurice, and we know him well here in Carolina.
Yep.
But they make the playoffs a couple years ago with him. But and that's a hockey crazy place if ever there was one, Winnipeg, Manitoba. But I just don't think that they're going to make the playoffs this year. And once again, it's because they're playing in the toughest division in hockey.
Yeah, I think they're going to be better than last year. But they were 7th place last year. I think they're going to finish close to making the playoffs, but I agree with you. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They're returning essentially the same team they had last year.
Right.
But they're adding Patrick Laine, who played really well for Finland in the World Cup against, the best players in the world. So he's going to come in NHL ready right from the go.
Yes, he will be he may win the Calder Cup. You never know.
Not a bad choice there.
The Calder Trophy, excuse me.
For
sure. But I had them finishing 5th, and that brings up my projected finish.
Okay.
I had the Nashville Predators finishing 1st, the Dallas Stars finishing 2nd, Chicago Blackhawks 3rd, St. Louis Blues 4th, the Winnipeg Jets finishing 5th, the Minnesota Wild 6th, and rounding it out, the Colorado Avalanche.
All right. I'll tell you what I have. I still have Chicago winning the division. They're just too strong, too experienced. I've got Nashville 2, Dallas 3. Those 3 teams are pretty much locks for making the playoffs.
Yep.
Then we're going to have a gap to the next team, which would be St. Louis. And then I've got Winnipeg next, followed by Minnesota, then Colorado.
So we virtually have the same thing.
Did I miss anything? Yeah.
No.
So I see St. Louis making the playoffs, but barely. I think they're in for a fight at the end and it won't be with teams in their own division. Maybe the Jets will compete for that last spot, but I think the big fight will be against the teams in the Pacific Division.
Right. I agree with you.
So I see 4 out of this division. I can't remember what I said was going to make the playoffs. I think I said 4 out of the Pacific as well.
The Edmonton Oilers.
Yep. So I see 4-4 in that case.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to our KHL Minute. And I'll just real quickly give you mine because you've got an actual story that came out of the league. There wasn't a lot of stories. One thing that I've noticed on the KHL website, they really only post 1 story per day. So it gives us very limited choices on what stories we can go with. But what I did find is I found a YouTube channel that is run by the KHL. And they put on their channel. Now, if you just go to youtube.com and search for KHL, or you can go to youtube.com/user/KHL official video. That's their channel. And they post highlights of every game that is televised over there, or has a TV feed. They don't put every game up, but most of the games, particularly with the stronger teams, are up. And then they do a daily highlight video every day, both in English and in Russian. They have both on there. There's an American guy. He sounds American anyway, doing the highlight show, and it's about a 10 to 15 minute highlight show every single day, which gives you a rundown of every game. So that's where I've been getting a lot of my highlights anyway.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so you'll want to check that out. So yeah, they have again. It's at youtube.com/user/KHL official video, and we'll put a link in the show notes.
Very, very good. That's very good information. My KHL minute, I picked Nikita Nikitin with his triumphant return to his home team, Avant-Garde Omsk.
Yep.
He got a goal and an assist in his first game back, and they won.
Yep.
So,
and of course, we mentioned in last week's podcast that he had signed with them. So he finally played his first game going back there.
And it was a successful one. And, think about that. He flies from the United States over to Russia, leaving for good, or at least 2 or 3 years, and scores a goal and gets an assist, and the team wins, and his home team.
Yep, hometown team. Yep. So, yeah, I did see that story. Another KHL thing I wanted to make a note of, I was watching on NHL Network today, that show that comes on at noon, Hockey Central.
Yep.
They had Mike Keenan on today. And, of course, he spent 3 years coaching over in the KHL.
Right.
And one of the things that struck me in particular was, he mentioned that he had a good time over there, but he said he's glad to be home, glad to be back in Canada. And one of the comments he said about the KHL, among, some of the other things he said, was he felt that the KHL is the competition or the competitiveness is too laid back, in his opinion.
Oh.
And of course, he's a very fiery, competitive guy.
Yeah, he is.
So if he says that the KHL is a little too laid back, which kind of goes along with some of the stories we've been hearing out of that league, for sure.
Yeah, he won the Gagarin Cup.
He did.
He won the Stanley Cup for the Rangers. He won the Gagarin Cup 2 years ago.
Yep.
Which is the KHL's.
And wasn't he on the coaching staff of one of the World Cup winners too, possibly?
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I think he might even have an Olympic medal thrown in there somewhere.
Yeah, he might be one of those guys with the 4 golds.
Yep.
But he's it's not like he went over there with that Magnitogorsk team. They're good.
Yep.
Metallurg, they're a good team there.
They're off to a very good start this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
let's go on to our picks of the week, and I will go ahead and start because you've got a bit of a story. But I will go ahead and start and mention that the U.S. College Hockey Online, USCHO.com, has released their preseason rankings for the men's NCAA Division I. Their preseason rankings are out. And number 1 at the top with 43 first-place votes is North Dakota, which is picking up essentially from last year. Didn't they win the NCAA title last year?
They sure did.
Yeah.
They sure did.
So number 2 is going to be Quinnipiac. They had 1 first-place vote. Number 3, Denver. Number 4, Boston University. Number 5, Boston College, who actually had a first-place vote. Must have been their own coach.
Jerry Orr.
Yeah. They're number 5. Number 6, Minnesota Duluth. Number 7, St. Cloud State. Number 8, Massachusetts Lowell. Number 9, Notre Dame. Number 10, Providence. I'll go ahead and stop there. The rankings actually is a top 20. And if you want to see the other 10, go on to uscollegehockeyonline.com and you can find those out. But there was one thing that jumped out at me was BU at number 4. I felt that they should, and they did get 5 first-place votes, but I felt that they should have been closer to the top. Because in the 2016 draft, in the NHL draft, number 7, Clayton Keller, number 14, Charlie McAvoy, number 17, Dante Fabro, number 19, Kiefer Bellows, all first-rounders, and in the second round, number 45, Chad Chris, are all playing for BU this year. A couple of these guys are freshmen, a couple of these guys are sophomores, but they're all going to be playing for BU. That team is going to be a powerhouse this year in the NCAA, and it pains me to say that, being a Maine guy. All right, because
East.
Because as a college hockey fan, no one hates BU as much as I do because they're just they've always had a rough rivalry with the University of Maine, and right now Maine is in a downswing, so there's not much of a rivalry going on right now. It's pretty much dog versus fire hydrant at this point. Because I did see the Hockey East rankings came out, the preseason coaches poll for Hockey East, and they've got Maine picked dead last, which I think is wrong because they got, from what I understand, they've got some pretty good freshmen coming in, but Maine's going to be the youngest team in the league by quite a bit this year, so hopefully they'll surprise a few teams. So I felt that Boston University should be higher up than number 4, and they probably will be.
Yeah.
So, and I think in episodes going forward, I'd like to add an NCAA minute. And even if it's something where I'm the only one that brings the story to that, I do want to talk about the NCAA every week.
That's a great idea.
Going forward. I know you're not much of a college hockey fan, but I can more than make up for your lack of college hockey knowledge with what I know. So
that would be great, Wayne. I'd like to listen to that and learn.
Yep.
That would be great. My pick of the week is again, I'm a sentimentalist, and this is something that kind of touched my heart again. I'm not trying to be like Don Cherry at Coach's Corner, but there's a plethora of these things out there, and I just think the world of NHL hockey players and what they do off the ice is really light years ahead of any other of the professional sports that we watch. But Duncan Keith made a video on YouTube. It's actually broadcast on YouTube. It's with the help of the Chicago Blackhawks organization. If you go on YouTube and type in the words Duncan Keith Cammy, Cammy, you'll pull up a video of a young girl who cannot talk or walk. She has impediments. I'm not sure if it's a disease. They really don't go into details on it on the video. But the theme of the video is what's your goal, and what she wanted, and she was able to communicate it to her parents, was to be able to score a goal on the ice with her favorite Chicago Blackhawk player, Duncan Keith.
Oh, okay. I think I saw that video.
Did you?
Yeah.
The Blackhawks organization made that happen, and it's really a great video. It's like a minute and a half. If you have a chance, you can pull it up on YouTube on your cell phone or on your computer at home. It's well worth a minute and a half or 2 minutes, whatever it takes to watch and follow, and especially people who, I'm sure there's a lot of hockey guys downloading our podcast, and if your wife is not as much into the game as you are, this is a way to really open a door and have her come watch this video. It might change her idea of the NHL or sports in general, what players are actually doing in the NHL to help out a community or a group of people. They're great. I am so glad I'm a hockey fan when I see stuff like this. What they do off the ice it's telling, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. And I think I did see that video. I remember it from. It came out a month or two ago, didn't it?
I think it's been out for a while, actually. Yeah. But I didn't know about it until recently.
Oh, okay.
And
but yeah, and I think it's great. And I know the Boston Bruins do a lot with the. Of course, there's a big cancer hospital right there in Boston. Dana-Farber, I believe, is in Boston. And they do bring a lot of Make-A-Wish kids through their program as well. And that's a big thing that the Bruins do. And the Bruins regularly visit the Children's Hospital there as well. So, again, can't say highly enough about these guys and what they do for the community.
Yeah. In my case, Wayne, my wife has seen this, but my wife is a massive hockey fan. It's a great thing in our marriage. But when it's hockey night, when that game's coming on, man, we got the popcorn. We're at the TV, and I'm jumping up and down. I've spilled popcorn so many times and been scolded by her watching hockey games. It's unbelievable. But hockey night at our house means something, let me tell you.
Well, at least you're rooting for the same team anyway.
That's right.
It'd be worse if you had, an Islander fan in your house.
Yeah, they wouldn't survive. Years ago, anyways, I've become a much more mellow guy. But yeah, as an Islander fan back in my teens or 20s. Oh,
great. Cool. Well, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
I think we got it all, didn't we?
Okay. Yeah, I think we do. All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. And again, we've got next week. We're all done with our team previews, so we don't have to deal with that next week. We're heading straight into NHL preseason, and we'll be spending a lot of time talking about who's going to make the teams and who's not going to make the teams, and we'll take things from there.
Super.
So, all right. So until
Good
next week. Until next week, we'll talk to you later. Well, there you have it. We'll see how good Steve and I are at picking the playoff teams in a few months. But for now, NHL hockey is back, and we couldn't be more excited about it. Next week, we'll wrap up our World Cup coverage, then we'll jump headfirst into NHL action. In the weeks to come, as most minor pro and major amateur leagues get going, we'll cover them as well. If you like the show, please show us your support by subscribing to it using your favorite podcatcher, program, or app. The Hockey Nuts podcast can be found on major podcast search engines like iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. Just search for the term The Hockey Nuts in those apps. There are a few ways you can get involved with the show. You can email the show at feedback@thehockeynuts.com, or you can leave us a voicemail in our mailbox at 919-960-1718. We'll address your feedback on future episodes of the Hockey Nuts podcast. Also, you can tweet us. I'm at WayneHalley9. Steve is at sball504man. Also, be sure to visit our website at thehockeynuts.com. The site is as new as the show, but we have a blog going already, and you can listen to the show through your web browser on that site. In the future, we'll be offering all kinds of hockey-related resources on that website, not just for hockey fans, but for those of you who want to be involved in the game in your area as a player, coach, official, or even the Zamboni guy. As always, links and stories that we mentioned in the show are available in the show notes for this episode. Finally, we're also looking for future guests for the show. Obviously, we're not experts on every team and league in hockey, so if you consider yourself more knowledgeable than us on a particular team or league, we definitely want to hear from you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Hockey Nuts podcast, and until next week, we'll catch you at the rink.